It's a pleasure to welcome you, Erica, to our Inside the Workflow podcast. Erica is the Chief Customer Officer at Storytell.ai. Erica has a really impressive background. She has taught writing at NYU and published in the New York Times and Vanity Fair. And now at Storytell, she's the visionary behind Clean Communication, a framework that helps foster authentic communications and connections through feedback. She runs the Humane Tech meetup in Silicon Valley, and she helps entrepreneurs and industry veterans explore how technology can support humanity. And with a background in content strategy and her role running Founder Culture, Erica has empowered countless entrepreneurs to tell their stories. So I'm excited to be able to ask her more about her story today. She's also passionate about ethical AI, and we're excited to learn more about that. So excited to have you with us, Erica.
Super excited to be here. And yeah, always a privilege to have what's become as close as we can get to in person, face to face time.
Yeah, that's right. Seems like we're doing more and more of less and less of that. Well, to get started, I would love to know, you've heard a lot of different advice over the years. Would love to hear your favorite piece of advice or like one of your top favorite pieces of advice.
Mhm. Yeah, as advice is funny because yeah, it actually brings to mind a crowded auditorium with author Arundhati Roy, who's the author of God of Small Things. And all these writers in the room were asking, for her advice. She's like, here's what I do with advice. I don't give it. Because sometimes it's really hard to match exactly the situation that someone else is in. So I think a truism that really comes to mind around this is Henry Ford's maxim, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. And to me, I think especially, as a co-founder of a startup, and being in the startup space, this whole, am I coming from a I can or am I coming from a I can't? Whether that's with customers, with a deal, with employees, with building out a process, et cetera. I just think it applies to so much. And there's this whole like paradigm shift within, that's building 0 to 1, that's starting from scratch. And so David Foster Wallace's commencement speech back in 2005 at Kenyon, where he's speaking about these two fish. So it's called This Is Water. And so there's two young fish swimming along, and this older fish comes through and he's like, "Hey, how's the water?" And they look at each other and they're like, "What the hell is water?" And, and so how can we like realize the paradigm we're in order to do a paradigm shift? So to me, these are the two big things, like I can versus I can't in startup land. And like how, like, oh, now I'm out of the box. Oh no, I was still in a box. Now I'm really out of the box. And I was just talking about this with my co-founder and CEO, Trodio, like, oh, it's really easy to bring a perfection mindset to startups. And like, that's a recipe for failure. Um, and versus a spirit of adventure and this like out of the boxness. So to me, it's like, how can I approach the day with I can and with a spirit of adventure and be able to see the water.
That's beautiful. One of the things that my daughter Ray's kindergarten teacher always says to her when she says I can't or I can't do it, she always adds comma yet. So she'll say like I can't do it yet. And
Exactly.
I like reflect on that all the time, and I'm like, wow, that kindergarten teacher really got to me with that one. But those are beautiful. I think those are really great points, and I think is especially helpful in a startup context where everything is hard, and you just have to do it, you have to try it, and you have to keep after it. So that's really
Right.
great. You
Yeah.
seem like a great storyteller. So you've helped craft stories for companies and platforms of all these different sizes.
Mhm.
Tell me a little bit how you use storytelling in your roles of leadership, and then also just sort of maybe in peer or mentorship kind of activities.
Yeah, I think, I'll actually bring up something here that I know we've all heard about for at least probably 20 years, but Simon Sinek's Start With Why, I find incredibly valuable. We talk internally as we're like training our teams at Storytell about zooming out and then zooming in. So, like, what's the larger context? Why are we here? Why are we doing this? Whatever it is. Why are we interested in learning how to give each other helpful feedback? What is the point of that internal focus time? And then going into the details and doing it in a way that's collaborative, in that it's like, hey, Scott, are you with me? Like, how's that landing for you? What's going through your mind as I bring this up? So how, whether I'm on a call with a customer or with a direct report, like how can it be a dialogue as opposed to like information delivery?
Hmm.
And I think so often communication we assume is information delivery, but it's actually a story. And you're a player in that story. And the more you see yourself inside that story, the more we can build something together.
Interesting. Okay, so um, I think it feels like one thing that I've been kind of wondering as I prepare to talk with you is you seem like a very empathetic, human-centered person. Like you mentioned in your biography on like LinkedIn and some of your focus around AI. Um, it seems like AI in some ways is very like not empathetic. It's not, at least so far, right? It seems very inhuman and robotic, and it gives you what you want. And
Mhm.
I'm curious like how you're thinking about making AI more human centered. What that means is that making the AI more human centered. Is it making the content? Is it making how we interact with it? The outputs? Like, what does that mean? Can you tell us some more about that?
Yeah, no, I love that question. And I know with AI, it's so easy for like these Terminator images to pop up, or just robotic interactions with chatbots. I think I would kind of step back here into humane technology as a whole, and going back to, instead of us working for technology, how does technology work for us? And there's this incredible nonprofit, the Center for Humane Technology, that has a free online course, Foundations in Humane Technology. And it all begins with the question, how can technology treat our attention and intention as sacred? And, so there's that. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even know people would use the word sacred as they talk about technology. But also, technology is not neutral. It's not like, oh, we're just building what people want. Like, okay, how can we, um, instead of take advantage of like the worst of human nature, or how evolution molded us towards vigilance, um, and actually support human nature, or help us make better decisions of like, oh, do I want do I want to be on this platform for, social media platform for 4 hours a day? Maybe I don't. How can it help me set limits that are supportive of my mental health and my sleep patterns and so forth? So I think we start to see some examples like with the iOS on, iPhones, saying like, hey, do you want all notifications batched, or do you want them to just come as they go? So just starting to have some choice. So that's like super high level, not at the AI. Something that um, we're doing with our product is we're starting to build in some of the clean communication frameworks of like, hey, feelings and needs. Like, what are the feelings expressed in this call, or the unmet needs? And it's interesting, Scott, because it's actually where we started. We started with a Slack bot, before ChatGPT came out, and people were running it on their Zoom calls. And the part that it was the Storytell reports, and the part that we heard the most feedback around was feelings and needs. So it was like, hey, what was everyone feeling on our team call today? Like, I really want to know. So I think there's always that, like, anything can be used for good or for bad. And so I'm sure people could look at that like, oh no, there's like big brother watching over us. But I think as we live in this remote, as you were saying at the beginning, this like largely remote or distributed workforce, we're just getting on calls with each other and we're not there in person. So we're missing things. And so I think with whether it's our AI or another, there's ways where it can help us be closer to each other and understand each other better. Um, so I don't know, that's the initial thoughts. I don't know what that.
No, I love that. I mean, like what's funny is there's like you said, there's iOS, Instagram, Screen Time, FaceTime, all these apps, Screen Time, excuse me, where it sort of like gives you some control,
Mhm.
but you have to take that first step and you have to enable it. I have a home automation system for my home. It's called Home Assistant. It's open source, and I have these little automations that go off at like 9 p.m. It's like turn off the TV, turn off the lights. I have Alexa say, "Okay, it's time to go to bed, guys." And like, me and my wife are like, darn, Alexa's telling us to go to sleep. But like, it helps.
Right,
But it'd be so cool if, my TV did that automatically for me.
right.
But it doesn't. And that's a really simple place where I could easily spend my evening watching sci-fi or drama or whatever. Um,
Completely.
I love the idea too of like the context of how people feel in a meeting,
Mm.
especially as we're doing more of these Zooms. Very super interesting. Okay, so you've been working on bots and AI and introducing this style of communication and bringing some I guess more emotive or like helping you see what's happening in these meetings and calls. But what are some of the biggest challenges you're finding as you implement the AI and then actually bring them to companies and customers? Is it
Mm.
like they just don't use these tools yet? They're reluctant. It doesn't quite get them where they want to be. What are some of the biggest challenges? And maybe you probably have some really granular specific ones, but also some high level ones.
Yeah, definitely. It's so interesting, Scott, because I'm sure as you've seen and maybe experiences how you're using AI, like it's really changed so much in a short period of time. Like last year felt like the big no from enterprise, like AI is not safe, ChatGPT is banned, and a little bit like good luck with that. A lot of people are using our product in your companies. How do you actually control what people are using, especially when like, oh, there's this massively powerful tool, but guess what? You can't use it. So that didn't last. That didn't last. And so this has felt like the year of yes, like I kind of maybe it's a somewhat tentative yes, but realizing, oh my God, we as an enterprise will be left behind if we're not using AI. Um, that said, there's something that we bring, which is like, where are you on your scale with AI, your relationship to AI? Are you more in the avoidant? Um, are you cautious? Are you enthusiastic? And we help people see like, okay, am I vis-a-vis AI? And what do I need or what do I want to move to a different stage? And so I think there is some like personal stance towards AI that either we overcome or we acknowledge, okay, you're in an avoidance stage. This isn't, AI isn't for you right now, but let's see if at some point it is. Um, but I think the standard question that everyone has been coming to calls with this year as we're doing initial demos and so forth is, are you training on my data? And so a lot
Hmm.
of really understandable concern about that. And we are not. So categorically, that's just not something we're doing. And we use enterprise APIs, and those are not training on any data. So the sanctity of data is definitely key and an understandable hurdle. Um, and then beyond that, I really feel like it's behavior change, going back to those stages of it's not just, okay, this is the latest accounting tool. Let's download this and I'll use it on our team. But this is a different way to work and to interact. And so we've done so much AI education, and I'm sure we will continue to do that. Just around like, oh, when you don't get what you want on the first try, iterate. Because again, if we're accounting software and it gets a number wrong, like, I don't think we can use this. This is not working. Versus, oh, I'm gonna reach into the LLM and find the value that I'm looking for. And I'm going to learn how to reach into the LLM. So again, then around prompting. So how do we lower the barriers around prompting? So you and I can both get great results, whether we're experts in prompting or not.
In some ways, I think I totally agree with the code prompting or like the prompting of the LM. When I pick up my kids from school, I say, "How was your day?" And they say, "Fine." And I think, "Man, that was a terrible example of a question," and I have to revisit it. Or it's like a detective who's trying to ask somebody they've brought in and ask some questions, and they're sort of trying all these different angles until eventually they get to the truth. But I think that is one of the biggest challenges is like actually going back to your answer earlier, it's like it might not work yet, but if you work at it and you keep pushing, it's eventually going to get there.
Mhm.
Super interesting. So okay, so like, let's say once you get your customer or your customer to actually use Storytell, and they're implementing your product and using AI at least, and they're like aware that it could help them. How are
Mhm.
they talking to their customers? How are they engaging with them? What are some of the really cool and interesting ways that you're seeing either the potential for or the reality already?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think along those lines about what's possible with AI when interacting with customers is the level of personalization. And I feel like personalization has been like a meme or a trend for 2 decades. And it's like, well, is it here yet? Like, okay, I can design my own Nikes. Or you know, but beyond that, is it really here? And at least largely with any pitches that I receive, um, it's not been. It's like, okay, this is just a standard template. This is not speaking to me. And for instance, we have a user who creates proposals just all day long, and that's because he's the one doing the work, so he's the has the technical acumen. So it used to be a go-to-market team, but they didn't have the depth of data to really create solid proposals. And so he's using our product to create extremely personalized proposals, and he's getting most of them accepted. And so he's like, whoa, I have a way higher acceptance rate. And I'm making one, I wouldn't have even done this before, so this the difference between doing it and not doing it. But then it's like, I did that in half an hour or 12 minutes. And, this potential customer just said yes. So it's, I think, bringing a lot of ease and this like, oh, you get me. So I think that, the people that he's making the proposals to is like, oh, this shop like intimately understands our business. And so it makes it an easy yes.
It's really interesting, like thinking about so I've been in sales my entire life. And
Ah, okay.
when I have a sales call with a sales rep who is really great, the first thing I always notice is that the pitch deck they use, very simple. It's like got my company logo. And like, that's not always the case. It's one of these things where you would think after, I don't know, 10, 20 years of BB SaaS or however long we've been doing this, like just the act of personalizing that first slide with my face or my name or my company or something, but like not everybody does it. And it really does set you apart right away. Super, super fast. How about you? How about for you personally? I think one of the things I'm excited about is like, obviously helping your customers, but like one thing I've really appreciated about working with you and then Drodeo is that you guys are like power users of these tools and you're always figuring things out. What's been most impactful for you?
I think like for me with AI, for instance,
Yeah.
um, yeah, and I appreciate you saying that. I think, we have like market signals, our North Star is one of our values at Storytel. So it's like be very, very user centric and everything we do. And we have to know what we're talking about. So we need to use the tools. And it's fun to use the tools. So I've got many stories I could pull from, but the one I'll share is around essentially code switching. So, a term that often people of color are using, but anytime that we're switching from one environment to another and how you talk to your friend after work is going to be different than how you talk on a sales call and so forth. And this like sometimes this gaining purchase into a world where you might not otherwise feel you belong. And as a female co-founder, and there's way more female co-founders now with AI, there's been a big jump, I think about 20% with this whole rise of generative AI. And so, how I normally speak in conversation, which is around, like connection and so forth, that doesn't always land really well with like the tech exec landscape in Silicon Valley. And so I actually, yeah, just created prompts around like, rewrite this so that, I am this. I'm a female co-founder in Silicon Valley. I need my male peers to respect me. Rewrite this message in a way that it will really land. And I did that and I tricked Drodio. So he saw my message. He's like, oh my God, amazing. Like, that's the way to be co-founder. And I was like, so about that, it's to an external party. But so that's I think in terms of like how can it be more than I think I can be, going back to that like I can mentality. AI is incredible to support us with that.
Right. And I think a lot of the time it's like trying to figure out what you don't know about this group or this environment that you need to know in advance. And so like it equips you, like you said, to pretend and to try to become and impersonate. I think a lot of us, and myself included, I go into a room with other CEOs and I'm like, man, I'm such a joker compared to all these other guys. And, I'm like, okay, Scott, take a deep breath, put on the persona of CEO, and let's go. And then, obviously, like as you had these conversations, you break down some of the communications and people realize like, all right, we're kind of all working on the same thing. We all feel it the same way. So that's amazing. I actually had never heard of that phrase before either, code switching. So let's add that to the brain. I love it. Let's switch a little bit to talking about leadership. You've led your customer experience team. You have your clean communication framework. I have always loved the idea of receiving feedback, asking our customers, our team. Sometimes though, I worry that they're not giving me the feedback that I need, and I worry that I'm not going to hear their hard feedback. How do you help, I guess, foster or create an environment that like you can actually give the feedback and then you actually can receive it in a way that it works great?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I feel like we'll always be wrestling with this, like humanity will always be wrestling with this. Um, because you are counteracting culture and hierarchy and different work cultures around the world, which, some of those cultures are like you can't talk to your elders that way. That's or you can't talk to someone in a position higher than you that way. And so something one book we really love at Storytell is Radical Candor by Kim Scott. And she has a question that we've brought into our one-on-ones of like, what's one thing that I as your manager could do or stop doing that would make it easier to work with me? So I find that to be a really powerful question. Now, in order to break through those different cultural barriers to actually like give that feedback, that I think that's still a work in progress, but we very much invite it from each other. And as co-founders, we try to model that by having regular feedback sessions with each other where it's like, okay, I'm going to take a half hour to look at a pattern. I think feedback is most helpful when it's not one-offs or gotchas, like,
Yes.
oh, I've been seeing this, and then we do paraphrasing. So we have a whole process of like, hey, are you open to feedback? Okay, yes. If it's not a scheduled feedback time. I could spend a lot of time on this. I'll try to summarize myself. But so then it's, okay, Scott, what are you hearing me say? So then you're paraphrasing it back. And then, okay, and how is that landing for you? It's like, okay, I see the truth here. I'm not seeing it there. Okay, where do we want to go from here? Or this is what I need from you. How do you want to get there? Actually.
I've noticed, kind of going back to the one of the comments you made about establishing a pattern. I've noticed whatever the context, whether it's at home with my spouse and we talk about things that we're frustrated with, hey Scott, you didn't wash, do the dishes. Like one of my main jobs is I'm like the dishes guy. And
Okay.
so, if I miss a couple of days in a row, it's like we start talking about it. Or when I worked at Facebook, I had a great manager. Her name was Monica Dractis. She talked about this idea. She's like, typically when I give you feedback, I'm going to have wanted to see it happen 3 times before I actually bring it up with you. Because
Nice.
I have noticed that the first thing everybody says is, when have I done that? Give me an example of that. It's always like hearing feedback is tough. I think in a work context, we're often more open or careful to receive the feedback, but still there's that visceral emotional reaction,
Completely.
which is really hard to get past. So I love the idea of the pattern, trying to identify, obviously, like if the person's stealing money from the business, maybe just like don't do that right away.
Yeah, that's not feedback. That's the feedback is we have contacted the authorities.
Yeah, exactly. That's super interesting. Okay, I love that. And I actually have not read Radical Candor other than like seeing the quotes. I think that's a great book that I'm going to take away and read from there. Okay, so let's talk about let's say, for example, we have an outcome that we're trying to achieve. We're trying to grow revenue or grow customer base or release a new product. How do you balance the sort of like, I guess, you know, communication style, the empathetic work culture, and then also like the let's get it and get the results. So how are those things? How
Yeah.
do you build a culture that cares about results and giving feedback and making sure that we're not eight holes together or to each other?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Right, completely. And so that's the what drew you and I mean, that's very much part of our experiment with company culture at Storytell. And I'll admit, this being my first rodeo in the startup land, I definitely came in with some ideas that uh didn't totally match up. We were so focused on so these two aspects, right, of like creating a product to believe in and a place to belong. And so that's something that I like wisdom that I got from Sue Odio and Rodeo as well, just things that they've shared with the world and many founders through founder culture. And we realized we're so focused on creating a place to belong that we weren't doing enough right at the very beginning around product to believe in. So we had to do a whole
Hmm.
reroute of like, we're not at the resort stage of a startup. We're not all sitting here hanging out on the beach. It is go time. And so I really like, I see clean communication as an umbrella term to like anything that's providing clarity. So like ARCHI, which we refer to as RACI, the decision-making framework. Um, Actually, swap. People say RACI, we say ARCHI. But like, I think that's part of clean communication. Who's the accountable party? Who needs to be consulted? Who needs to be informed? When you don't have that clear, like, whoa, there's just a lot of conflict. But I think so much of it is, hey, let's all know where we're headed. We need to know our mission, our vision, like our product roadmap, where we're trying to get to in this quarter, where we have to get to for our next raise, what our roles are to get there. And then operations, just like everyone's getting, paid on time, the trains are leaving on time, etc. If you don't have those set up, it doesn't matter how much empathy you want to do with each other. So I think even like humane technology, so much of it is table stakes of what's a really good SaaS product? What's a really good UI and UX? What products do you love to use? They're probably following a lot of humane design principles. And yeah, with our companies, it's like, okay, are you operational? Are you focused? Do you know where you're going? Great. Like, how do you weave in like empathy through that? But you're not a personal development company. You're trying to achieve objectives with customers.
Right. You're trying to take Storytell and build it into something, incrementally incredible that helps your customers. So like, yeah, that completely makes sense. I think the idea of working somewhere that, cares about you and has a big mission, is excited to go out and chase it. Like, I think everybody wants that.
Yeah.
So let's say you either meet your goal or you're making great progress towards building this incredible product at Storytell. How are you envisioning AI, Storytell, kind of together, helping enable your customers to either connect, communicate, or just be way more productive? Like, what are some of the things that you hope to see or expect to see?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, our reason for existing is to make life meaningful by making work meaningful. And so what we've seen with our product to date, and it's like different industries, different roles, um, people just finding joy in their work, finding work-life balance, feeling like a superhero, making things possible that were just not possible before, finding product expansion possibilities by like really understanding their customers. And so there's something really meaningful about I'm not just a cog in the wheel. I'm here and this is, some level of work that I need to do. And then here's the work that I want to do. And so Storytell really enabling the need to do in a way that's actually joyous. So there's something around this superhero at work is essentially our like North Star metric. Like
Hmm.
how many people can we turn into superheroes?
That's beautiful. I talked with the COO of One Password yesterday,
Mm,
and one of the things he mentioned is that their focus on creating a product people love has enabled their growth and their expansion and their market potential. But if they had just created any other product that people had to use, it might die as that person goes to another company. And so, like, thinking about your product, if you can build something that enables you to be a superhuman version of yourself, you're going to be more productive, you're going to be happier, you're going to be like less flustered and tired. I mean, there's like infinite potential there. So let's wrap up with just talking a little bit about Storytell and some of the specific things that you guys are excited about, some of the areas that you're excited about that you're working on right now.
yeah, I think that when like so I'm going to go broad and then I'll go specific.
Great.
So, like with AI in general, I think there's this incredible opportunity for behavior change. Like we read books, listen to podcasts, etc. But then like actually changing behavior is really, really hard. And um and so something along those lines is, why are we called Storytell? Because there are so many stories hidden in our data that we don't even know about. And so, like, surfacing those stories, and sure, we run on data, but businesses really run on stories. And my ability to speak to you in a way that resonates for you versus someone in a different role or at a different company or in a different part of the world. And so, something we're building out right now is bringing in storytelling frameworks so that it's like, okay, maybe you read a book about storytelling with data, but how do you operationalize that? How do you um, start, speaking to the board of Zeit in a way that's telling a story in the way that they're really going to be able to hear? So that's something that we have in progress right now. I'm excited about. I think also that analyzing feelings and needs as we really look at how to integrate, humane technology into Storytell and the new wave of like, how do we reach humane AI and how can Storytell be a part of that in a way that, you know, like achieve business outcomes?
Awesome. Sounds very exciting. Well, it's been great talking with you, Erica from Storytell. And yeah, thanks for joining us on Inside the Workflow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My pleasure. And for me, really big takeaway around the word yet and just like the power of yet. So thank you for bringing that.
Oh, cool.